beyond this visual spectacle, scientists are warning that something much more profound could be happening underneath.
We're here at the most famous church here in Lalibela, St. George's Church.
Africa is the second largest continent in the world, and its population makes up 18% of the total population of the entire planet. It is not surprising that many peculiar artifacts and events can be found in Africa. There is a reason the continent baffled Europeans for centuries. Even today, discoveries are still being made that scare scientists. From mysterious elephant deaths to a 40-kilometer ring in the heart of the Sahara, here are 20 unsettling discoveries made in Africa. Number 1. Mysterious elephants' deaths. Elephants are among the most majestic and intelligent animals on Earth, but they are also facing a mysterious threat. In 2020, hundreds of elephants in Botswana started dying for no apparent reason, baffling scientists and considering many peculiar artifacts and events. Elephants usually have clear causes of death, such as poaching, predation, old age, or disease. The first signs of trouble were observed in March 2020, when some elephants in the northern part of the Okavango Delta began to show strange behavior. They stumbled, staggered, and wandered in circles before collapsing and dying. By June 2020, the death toll had risen to more than 350 elephants, spread over 3,000 square miles. Scientists recorded that 20 elephants were killed in one day alone. The cause of this mass die-off remained unknown despite extensive investigations and tests. The mystery of the elephant deaths in Botswana continued into 2021, as casualties reached 450 by January. This alarmed conservationists who wanted to discover the reason behind this tragedy, especially since African elephants are already endangered. African elephants used to number over 1 million in the 1970s, but their population has declined to only 415,000 due to illegal ivory trade, human-wildlife conflicts, and habitat loss. After months of investigation and testing, the authorities in Botswana announced that the cause of the elephant deaths was neurotoxins produced by cyanobacteria. These are algae that can grow in stagnant water and release harmful chemicals that affect the nervous system of animals. However, this explanation was not convincing to some experts from other fields. They questioned the reliability of the evidence and wondered why only elephants were affected by the cyanobacteria, while other animals that shared the same water sources were not. These questions may never be answered conclusively. Furthermore, another discovery was made: this creature resembled a dragon. The fact that the people in the community had never seen this kind of creature before made them curious, so they reported about its movement and how destructive it has been to crops and livestock. When the scientists found out, they were intrigued by this discovery and wanted to study the creature, but they had no choice but to put it to sleep because it was too dangerous and aggressive. They wondered what it could be and how it ended up in Africa. Could it be a real dragon or a different animal that evolved to look like one? Number 2. The Skeleton Coast. Skeleton Bay is located to the top north of the terrace in Namibia. The Swakopmund Skeleton Coast in northern Namibia is a place that many people call the Gates of Hell, or the region that God created in anger. It is one of the most hostile and desolate areas on the planet, where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Namib Desert. The coast is constantly shrouded in thick fog and strong winds caused by the cold Benguela current that flows along the shore. The fog provides some moisture to the desert plants and animals, but it also makes navigation and visibility difficult. The coast receives almost no rain, with an average of only 0.1 millimeters every 10 years. The beach is not a place for relaxation or recreation, as the surf is rough and dangerous. The sand is littered with shipwrecks, bones, and debris, giving the coast its name of skeleton. The beach is also sometimes inaccessible due to the shifting dunes that block the roads. In the days before the invention of engine-powered boats and ships, you could land on the beach through the waves, but it was nearly impossible to take off from them. The only way to leave the Skeleton Coast was to go over hundreds of miles of marshland, which could only be accessed through a scorching and arid desert. Even though it sounds terrible, many people go there to surf. Number 3. Salty Jackal. In 2020, scientists made a remarkable discovery that changed our understanding of human evolution. In a deep cave in South Africa, fossils of a new human-like species were found named the salty jackal. This species had a mix of traits that amazed the scientific community, such as a small brain, long legs, curved fingers, and large teeth. It lived in Africa about 2 million years ago and was a previously unknown hominid. Scientists found over 1,500 fossils and 15 individuals of this species in the cave, the largest and most complete collection of hominid fossils ever discovered in Africa. These animals had both ape-like and human-like characteristics. They had the wrist and finger bones of humans, but their brain was small, like an ape. They could walk on 2 feet like humans, but their fingers were bent, suggesting they could climb trees. Their lower limbs and feet were suited for walking, just like those of primates. The researchers believe these animals interbred with the ancestors of modern West Africans about 43,000 years ago. Their DNA contains between 2% and 19% of modern West African DNA. The researchers also believe that the ancient humans they mated with were a different species that has not been found, which resulted in the creation of hybrid offspring. Number 4. The giraffes with twisted necks. Giraffes are well known for their extraordinarily long necks, which give them several advantages in the wild. They can reach high vegetation that other animals cannot, and they can compete with rivals using their necks as weapons. Most giraffe necks measure about 6 feet long and weigh about 600 pounds. They have the same number of vertebrae as humans, but each is much longer. Because we are used to seeing giraffes with normal necks, we might be surprised if we encounter one that has a different shape. That was the case for Philip Briggs, a resident of Amboseli, Kenya, who spotted a fully grown giraffe with a noticeable kink in its neck while traveling through the Chiulu Hills in the southeast of the country. He was puzzled by the sight of the giraffe, whose neck was visibly twisted out of shape. Some researchers suggested that the giraffe might have had an accident in its youth or developed scoliosis, which causes the spine to curve. The giraffe was transferred from the Wild Park in Ohio to the Tulsa Zoo in Oklahoma because of its unusual features. The Kenyan giraffe was not the only one with a bent neck. Amali, a 5-year-old giraffe, also had this trait. The zoo staff were worried that the strange kink might be incurable, but they did not think the animal was suffering and hoped it would heal by itself. However, Amali did not recover. She could move and eat normally, but the injury to the growth plate in her neck had damaged her vertebrae. She died shortly after being sedated for an X-ray. Number 5. Half human, half dog. South Africa has been the site of many strange discoveries, including a creature that seems to be a hybrid of a human and a dog. In 2017, someone captured footage of 3 animals running down a road. 2 of them were dogs, but the third one was baffling. It had some features of a dog and some of a human. It could bend over and run on its hands and feet differently. After the video went viral, some residents of Limpopo claimed to have seen it in their area. Similar stories of a half-human, half-dog creature date back to 1887 in Michigan, USA. Researchers confirmed that the creature had both human and canine DNA. You might wonder how this happened, or could it be something less mysterious, like a sick dog? But this is not the first time such a creature has been seen, and it probably won't be the last either. In 2021, a man claimed that he was stalked for a month in the Australian outback by a monster that was part human and part dog. He also said he saw the beast following him from the riverbank while fishing in the woods. He named the beast John and took a picture of it. He showed it to some people who thought it was a dog man. Number 6. African rock art. Nowadays, it is easy to pull out a paper and pen to draw. However, thousands of years ago, the earliest people to inhabit our planet depicted themselves by carving images into rocks. In Africa, an estimated 100,000 prehistoric rock paintings are as old as 27,000 years, and most of these drawings were done on rocks. Unfortunately, due to their exposure to some elements, many may soon vanish. This brought researchers based in universities to proceed with the research to track them down, catalog them, and ensure proper documentation of their existence. Currently, they have documented around 3,000 of them. Also, they found that some of the paintings on the rocks are considered the first examples of religious art in the world. At first, scholars assumed that the drawings were nothing more than random scribbles made by prehistoric people due to their similarity to the way we doodle on paper for no reason. Fortunately, in recent years, individuals have come to believe they represent their beliefs and worldviews. In addition to that, there are more studies to learn about these rocks and about prehistoric people and the manner they lived in the future. Number 7. Diamond Rush. In 2021, a herdsman in Kwalathi, South Africa, unearthed a stone in an open field that may have been a diamond or a quartz crystal, which resulted in the unintentional beginning of a diamond rush. People from far and wide searched for diamonds after the man spread to the surrounding communities. More than 1,000 individuals traveled to Kwalathi, located in the KwaZulu birthplace region of South Africa's Birthplace Province. One of the excavators who discovered a few of the little stones stated that it was a turning point in many people's lives because most people do not have a proper job. So with this, it would change lives. A herdsman, a father of two, reported that his family was overjoyed when he got home with the discovery. An unemployed man at the time also stated that this was the first time in his life that he had ever seen or touched a diamond in an open field. The discovered stones were sold for between 100–300 Rand and US dollars. When the Department of Mines heard, they stated that geological and mining specialists should be dispatched to the location to conduct analysis and collect samples. For the provincial authorities to conduct a thorough investigation, they ordered everyone to leave the site immediately. They were also concerned that the large number of people digging could transmit the COVID-19 virus. Number 8. Great African Sea Forest. The Great African Sea Forest is a large forage forest that can only be described as enchanted. The only forest in the world composed entirely of giant bamboo kelp. It reaches the coast of Namibia more than 600 kilometers from the coasts of Cape Town. Kelp is a form of algae, and a combination of split fan kelp and sea bamboo forms the underwater canopy of the Great African Sea Forest. Kelp is a type of macroalgae. The majority of this kelp can be seen from the coastline, with the split fan kelp growing to heights of approximately 10 feet, and the sea bamboo reaching heights of up to 55 feet. This particular kelp forest, in contrast to others that appear to be shifting, contracting, or even vanishing entirely, seems to be thriving. The ecosystem is robust and well-functioning, teeming with fascinating marine life. A home, shelter, source of food, and nursing ground for thousands of species, ocean regenerating properties, and CO2 reduction are just some of the many advantages the Great African Sea Forest provides for the region. In addition, the kelp shields the coastline from the effects of increasing seas and storm surges. However, much like every other natural ecosystem, this one is being threatened by human activity, contributing to deterioration such as ocean mining, poaching, contamination with plastic, and chemical waste, climate change, overfishing, and lack of general information and awareness. Number 9. The Klerksdorp Sphere. These are not ordinary balls. They are spherical or disc-like objects that miners in South Africa found. They were digging in pyrophyllite deposits about 3 billion years old near the town of Ottosdal. They look like they were made in a factory for a sport or game. But they are not artificial. They are natural formations that have puzzled scientists and journalists for decades. Geologists believe that these objects are the result of natural processes that shaped them over time. These balls are not ordinary. They are spherical or disc-like objects that vary in size from 0.02 to 3.94 inches. They were found in ancient deposits of volcanic ash or sediment or both in South Africa. They are mostly made of hematite or wollastonite with traces of goethite and pyrite. They have different colors from rusty brown to bright red or dark red. Some of them have grooves and ridges that are visible, and some of them are very hard, like steel. They look like they were made for a game of cricket, but they are natural formations. Geologists think that natural processes have shaped them over billions of years. The grooves on them are also natural. Number 10. The Stonehenge. You might have heard of Stonehenge, one of the most famous prehistoric monuments from 5,000 years ago. But did you know there is something similar but even older in Africa? This ancient site is called Nabta Playa, and some call it the African Stonehenge. It is possibly older than the actual Stonehenge, and it was used for astronomical observation by the people who lived there. About 7,000 years ago, when the Great Pyramid of Giza was not yet built, Nabta Playa had the oldest stone circle in the world. It is about 700 miles away from the pyramid. The stone circle and other structures at Nabta Playa served as a calendar for marking the seasons and a place for rituals involving celebration and sacrifice. Researchers believe that nomadic people who worshipped cattle constructed Nabta Playa to commemorate the summer solstice and the beginning of the monsoon season. However, it was first discovered in the Sahara by a nomadic Arab guide named Aida Marif, who came across some enormous stone megaliths by accident. It was scattered on the ground. At first, Aidi and the other persons he was with believed that the object was a natural formation. However, in the 1990s, excavations illuminated a mystery stone circle that appeared mysteriously aligned with the stars. After some time, it was discovered that the stone circle had, at one point, been aligned with Sirius, Alpha Centauri, and Arcturus. A few stones appeared to align with the 10th star in the Orion constellation. Number 11. Eye of the Sahara. You may be skeptical about the Eye of the Sahara, but believe me, it is a wondrous thing. To prove me right, take a look at the Eye of the Sahara. The Eye of the Sahara is also known as the Richat structure, with a large symmetrical dome composed of sedimentary and volcanic rock. The largest rings of the enormous eye have a diameter of around 40 kilometers, and they can be seen from outer space. Researchers are aware because astronauts were the ones who made us realize its existence initially. It is located in an isolated region in Mauritania, and the only people who have ever been there were 2 astronauts on the Gemini 4 mission, who happened to stumble upon it by accident. Since then, more information has become available to experts. Furthermore, there is a constant breeze in the region around the Eye of the Sahara, which helps to keep the sand at bay and preserves the clarity of the eye. Consequently, the various rock layers are consistently brought into view. At first, experts speculate that it came into existence due to a collision with an asteroid. Nevertheless, they now believe that a geologic uplift caused it. So, due to its stunning appearance and one-of-a-kind characteristics, the International Union of Geological Sciences has designated it as one of the first 100 geological heritage sites in the world. Number 12. The Fairy Circle. Many natural riddles have been stumping scientists for a long time. One of them is the Fairy Circle. There have been different explanations floating about their existence. Even in modern times, fairy circles are circular areas of ground utterly devoid of vegetation and measure between 7 and 49 feet in diameter. They are outstanding because grasses grow around them. In 2014, the only known locations of fairy circles were in the arid grasslands of the Namib Desert in South Africa. However, they are now discovered in the Pilbara region of Western Australia. Research into fairy circles has shown that they can be observed, and their life cycle can last between 30 and 60 years. In diameter, they are approximately 39 feet, and their width is 6 feet. When they reach that size, they reach maturity and begin to be gradually colonized by grasses. However, there has not been proof of their existence. The idea that plants organize themselves to gain access to minimal amounts of water brought plausible hypotheses. Some scientists suggest that the circular patch is responsible for capturing water, which flows to the ring's periphery that enables grass to grow there, can contribute to their growth. Other authorities think that radioactive soil, termites, and plant toxins may have contributed to their development. However, most respected industry professionals do not subscribe to these hypotheses. In Africa, moat fairy rings are located around 160 kilometers, 100 miles inland, which extend to the Southland from Angola down to the northwestern Cape Province of South Africa. Also, most of them have been located hundreds of kilometers away from the closest villages, and they have been discussed in the literature as early as the 1920s. Number 13. The baobab tree. Many people love trees. What's not to like about it? This tree is at the top of the list of trees adored worldwide. In Africa, this species is a treasure and an important symbol. Baobab trees have the potential to reach heights of 82 feet and have trunks that are 46 feet broad. People frequently refer to them as upside down because their twisted branches resemble roots. However, what sets them apart from other trees is not just their stature or the peculiar shapes of their limbs. They are useful in more than 300 different ways. They serve as a kind of supermarket for the world of trees and provide numerous benefits to the populations of Africa. The leaves are iron and can be boiled and cooked before eaten, like spinach. The tree oil can be extracted when you roast the seeds, and it can be used in the kitchen or for making cosmetics. Also, the roasted seeds can be replaced as coffee in your diet. The tree also has an ingredient called the pulp. The fruit pulp of the baobab tree is about 6 times the amount of vitamin C found in the typical orange. The fruit pulp can be fermented to produce beer, jam, and any other thing it produces. Even the tiniest of seedlings serve its purpose. Most people tap the roots of the young seedlings and eat them like carrots. Also, the roots can be used to manufacture a red dye, and the blossoms can be consumed. Through this tree, you construct baskets and rope. Scientists also proved that its components are medicinal. Its hollow parts can be used to store liquids such as water. Most significantly, they offer shade, which is clearly in short supply in many regions of Africa. You can also use some of its characteristics to generate money. Number 14. Oldest known stone tools. In Kenya, archaeologists tend to unearth many old stone tools, but few were discovered. The few found were 330 stones that date back to 2.9 million years in the excavation site in Nyayanga on the Homa Peninsula on the western side. Their data indicates that stone tool use was not exclusive to Homo sapiens' predecessors. Instead, they were utilized by other early human groups. They were used to slaughter hippos and pound plant items like fruit and tubers. When it comes to crushing and cutting, they were superior to the canine of a lion and the molar of an elephant. Before discovering fossil teeth, researchers assumed the artifacts belonged to Homo sapiens. Paranthropus, our presumed extinct hominin ancestors, had two huge fossilized teeth discovered alongside the tools. The outcome showed that there was no trace of modern humans there. Therefore, experts thought they understood about early humans and their abilities. Even when experts rethought to date, they are still unknown. Number 15. Floating villages. Most of us in Africa associate images of floating villages with depictions of devastating floods and other natural disasters. They are widespread in West Africa, mainly in Ghana, Nigeria, and Benin. People in these areas built their houses on stilts above the water and used their boats as a daily living to survive. They ensure their homes are elevated to be safe from floods and collapse. However, the largest floating village in Africa is called Ganvi in southern Benin. This island is centered around Lake Nakoi, where its inhabitants are about 45,000. However, how did this come to pass? Well, it's a matter of perspective. The Tanafu people are widely believed to have established the settlement about 500 years ago. They used to live on land and only go to the lake when they needed to escape. As they fled the Dahomey kingdom and its powerful Fon tribe, this tribe began enslaving other, less powerful tribes. This African monarchy sold at least 1 million people for various items, including guns. A single flaw balanced the kingdom's strength and power. The Fon people avoided Niknakoi because they believed it was haunted by a demon. Tofanu took advantage of this by establishing a community directly on the water. That's why the locals in this area name it Ganvi. It signifies that we made it. Number 16. Africa splitting apart. Africa is a large continent that is slowly splitting apart. This is because of the East African Rift, a huge crack that runs through several countries, such as Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Malawi, and Zambia. The rift is separating the African plate into two smaller plates, the Somalian plate and the Nubian plate. The gap between the plates is widening by a few millimeters every year. Scientists predict that in about 5 to 10 million years, East Africa will break away from the rest of the continent and form a new ocean. This is a radical transformation that will change the shape of Africa and create a new geography. Number 17. The Deadvlei. Deadvlei is a fascinating place to visit if you ever visit Namib Naukluft Park in Namibia. It is an area of white clay, also known as dead marsh. It is surrounded by towering dunes that reach up to 12 feet in height. The clay pan was formed by the Sao Shab River, which used to flood the area when it rained. The water created temporary pools that supported life. However, due to climate change and droughts, the dunes have encroached on the pan and blocked the river. The trees in the area have died because of the lack of water. Only 2 plants survive by absorbing the morning mist, Salah and Nara. Besides these living plants, you can also see the skeletons of trees that have been dead for up to 700 years. The sun has scorched these trees to a jet black color. They do not decay because of the extreme dryness. Number 18. Labella Architecture. Labella is a picturesque town in Ethiopia's Amhara region that attracts anyone interested in architecture. The city is famous for its rock-cut monolithic churches, reflecting ancient, medieval, and modern Ethiopian cultures. Ethiopia was one of the first countries to adopt Christianity in the 4th century. Later, between the 7th and 13th centuries, more churches were carved out of living rock, which is a rock that is still attached to the earth. These churches are recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. At least 11 of them have been discovered and grouped into 4 clusters. They are remarkable for their intricate design and golden color. Number 19. The ruins at Queneng. Imagine how you would feel if your current neighborhood was discovered by archaeologists tens of thousands of years from now. That was the case for the inhabitants of the pre-colonial Tswana capital in South Africa, known as the Queneng Ruins. The ruins are located about 20 kilometers, 12 miles south of Johannesburg, and date back to the 15th century. The culture that lived there collapsed, possibly due to civil wars in the 1820s that forced them to flee. But why did we only learn about this community recently? The vegetation did a good job of hiding the remains. Archaeologists used aerial photographs in the 1960s to create a map. They used satellite imagery from Google Earth from 2012 to 2014 to update the map. In 2015, they used the latest LiDAR technology, which uses laser pulses to detect the ground and any obstacles like plants and objects. The LiDAR study revealed that most of the site was covered by vegetation in the southern half, while the northern half was more exposed. Number 20. Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe is one of the most impressive landmarks in Africa. It is considered one of the best examples of African architecture in sub-Saharan Africa, second only to the ancient structures in Egypt. The city was built by the Shona people, the main ethnic group in Zimbabwe, between the 11th and 15th centuries. They abandoned it around 1450 for unknown reasons. The city consists of about 250 royal houses and multi-story dwellings made of clay and thatch. It could have housed up to 20,000 people at its peak. Only a few buildings have survived the weather, but they reveal amazing artifacts inside. Archaeologists have found interior furniture such as hearths, pot stands, and seats. Great Zimbabwe was not just a residential area, but also a prosperous metropolis where the locals traded their goods of ceramics, beads, and textiles for valuable items such as copper, ivory, and gold.